What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic weekend. I can tell you that here in beautiful Houston, Texas, we've been experiencing, I don't know, tropical storm what's-her-face decided to show up and drop bombs on all of our parties down here. So, thoughts are out to my fellow Houstonians that got the brunt of that storm. That was pretty brutal. Some parts of Houston actually got more rain than when we got hit by Harvey, if you can believe that. So, good to see this thing starting to pack up shop and split, but it's definitely made, getting any track footage all but impossible unless we're talking about boat racing. It ain't going to happen, at least for another week or so. So, at any rate, hope everybody's having a fantastic week. Get started on, again, you guys, chatting up with you guys about this Mopar stuff. I've been getting hit up with a ton of questions that are rotating around mods on Hellcats. What are my thoughts on this mod, that mod, tuning, gas quality? Should I go E85? What about trans tuning? The whole bit. Gears, everything. Everything's been really coming to the front here lately. I think a lot of folks have started to, pick up on the fact that we're coming into the race season. You know, a lot of you folks up north are having a ball with your temperatures right now. So down south, we're going to start getting it too, and hopefully here in the next couple of months. And guys are starting to think, well, I want to try to go after a number, man. I want to chase that number. I want to get that awesome hell of an ET that I've been seeing on the interwebs. I want to be that guy. And what I want to do is I want to have a chat with you guys about mods, tuning, a little bit more specific stuff when it comes to what I've been up to with my car, what I've done with my car, you guys. Things to watch out for, and that's really kind of more to the point. I learned from other people, together a video on this a couple of nights ago, and it was just, pouring down rain, had nothing better to do. And I kept coming into writer's block, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm doing a lot more live shows than normal videos. And I really do enjoy the live chat format, but the downside to it is that, I don't really get a chance, when I do try to put a video together, I end up with this real long form, and the video ends up being obnoxiously long. So that's why I've really started leaning more towards doing these live shows than the regular videos. If you haven't noticed, I'm not doing any normal videos really anymore, and that's why. Whenever I get started on putting a regular video together, it just goes on and on and on to the point where even I don't want to listen to it anymore. So I get it, and I want to try to, just focus more on live show stuff. And in this case, talking about some things to watch out for with your car. I want to check in with everybody real quick that's come in, and then we're going to get started. Dr. Div saying, glad to see you, Mason. Hope you did well during the storm. All well here. Good to hear that. Everything's good here, brother. Machine's checking in saying, what good? What's up, man? Shyster saying, what up, B. Mason? What's up, Shyster? DSRT got, what up, B? Got the arm flex. I like it. What's up, D? So let's go ahead and dive into this. The big thing that I've run into with most guys, the first thing they ask about with Hellcats, man, it's pulleys. What pulley should I go with? Well, how much power will I get out of a pulley? How much faster will it be with this pulley, that pulley, whatever? And I want to caution you guys, especially the guys at lower altitudes, when you're starting to throw pulleys at your car. You guys have heard me say time and time again that I don't like anything more than about a 295 upper on a car. There's another pulley that's out now, and I want y'all to be aware of it, if nothing else. Hellraiser, the manufacturer, basically manufacturer of the stock pulley, as a matter of fact, they got together, and it's an uncoupling pulley, and it's a 3.17 inch pulley, and it's touted as having no need for a tune. And I got to thinking about that. I thought, man, this is something that you got to be real careful with. If you live in, I don't know, an altitude higher than 2,500 feet, then this pulley might be for you. And it might be a pretty good idea because, you're already at a deficit when it comes to actual altitude. So you're percentage of oxygen is slightly lower, and a little bit more pulley will basically keep you on par with the stock car. I think that's the idea behind it. I can't be sure, but at least I hope that it is. Because at any other lower altitude, you are running a serious risk of maxing out your injectors, number one. If you are running into a situation where you've truly taken a bone stock car and thrown this pulley on there, yeah, you're going to get, when you start going into cat over temp and you start going pig rich with this thing, you could end up pegging the injectors. And that's not necessarily an awesome thing, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. If you're already throwing a ton of fuel at the car under the cat over temp, which is going to be somewhere around the 10.5 to 1 range anyway, as far as AFR goes, whatever with that. I mean, if it goes from 95% to 100% duty cycle, I don't know that there's going to be a big issue there, aside from fuel pattern quality is going to go completely to crap at that point. Something I'm not really too cool with. But the other thing that I would caution, especially for you guys that are running at lower altitudes, yeah, you've got your DA thing you got to worry about. And the thing is that if you are running an extra pound or pound and a half of boost with no provision for any timing to be removed or anything like that, and you run into a problem with fuel quality, all bets are off, man. And that's where I have the biggest problem, you see, because if you get into actually data logging these cars, you'll find out pretty quickly that the tune in these cars rides the knock sensor like you wouldn't believe. So it's not uncommon on a data log at the track to see stock Hellcats pulling 2.5, 3 degrees of timing, and most of it is false knock. You start getting into 3.5, 4 degrees of timing, it is common to see that with some guys that are either have a bad tank of 93 or guys that are running 91 octane. So does it hurt performance? Yeah, it hurts performance a little bit, but the car is still healthy. It's still running just fine. Add more boost to that thing though, and then you might start running into an issue where what happens if it doesn't catch it? What happens? We're talking, so I don't know. Jury's a little bit out with me on that pull setup. I don't know that I would be so quick to throw the kind of money that they want for that pulley at my car for the modest power gain that you're going to get, which ain't much, by the way, versus the risk. The risk shows all kinds of butchered up with that. So I would certainly caveat emptor on that. Buy with caution here. Let's see who else is in here. Marcel's checking in and saying, unfortunately, I haven't been able to hang out lately, but I'm free tonight. Let's do this. I like it. Shawnee's checking in and saying, good evening, Brian. Thank you for keeping me from blowing up my motor because you know I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to stop at Innovators West Lower and see how far I can go with that on a drag pack. I'll tell you what, man, I would say that that's the best bet for you to go with. And, you know, you're still going to get a couple of pounds of boost. Keep solid fuel in the car. If that's where you want to take the car, great. However, if you want to get any more performance out of the car, it would be a fool's errand to go after, you know, like a 295 upper pulley with a 9% or a 10% lower. Go with a 275 upper. Get the, I think it just flaked out on me here. I don't know where it broke off there, but go with the Injected Engineering twin pumps. 275 upper, let it eat on E85, get the cats out of there, and go at it from that perspective, because anything that you do between just a 10 or a 9% lower and anything else as far as pulley ratio, the performance gain is just, and the juice just ain't worth the squeeze. You know, at that point, you can go Hellraiser if you want. You can go regular Metco style pulley. It doesn't really matter if your crank is pinned. I would prefer to see an uncoupler or a decoupling pulley on there, just really more for durability than anything else. But, you know, the reality is that there's plenty of guys running around with normal pulleys, and they've been doing so forever. Hell, I had pulleys on my Lightning. I think I put 100,000 miles on that thing. Didn't have any problems with the blower or the crank or the seals or the bearings or anything like that. So different combination, but still. Always err on the side of caution, man. That's the main idea. Today, time trap is perfect. Two a bit rich, but in all, they look good. I think it may be a bit of a How do you feel about Brisk? I'm going to stop you right there and get him out of the truck. Go with the 7, go with the TR, crap. Anyway, get the Brisk out of your truck, man. I have had more problems than Jay-Z with Brisk plugs, and I don't want to have problems, and I don't like saying that I have problems with anything. I don't call anybody out, and I will never front somebody out unless it's warranted, and we used to go through Brisk plugs at the shop. So stick with the NGK7s and just let her rip with those. Those are fine for your combination, but yeah, Brisk, man, they might have gotten their stuff together by now, and it's been a minute or two, but I've had nothing but bad luck with Brisk plugs. Doctor is also, how do you feel about 9 PSI in the stock bottom end engine in my truck's currently an 85? It definitely likes it. I think I should worry about the rings finally starting to get short block built. I think you'll be fine at 9 PSI, but if you decide to get into like the 10, not 10, I'd say 12 to 13 PSI range, once you start creeping into that 1 bar range, I would suggest at least re-gapping the rings at that point. Just to be on the safe side, and the only reason why I'm even mentioning that is because you've got a truck and it's heavy. So you've got a lot more cylinder pressure going on there. So I would say, you know, when you start getting close to a bar, that's when I would certainly start to take a look at the ring gap. Let's see. Justin's checking in saying, what up, B? Can you believe my stock 5.7's camshaft melted? Thank God I still had the warranty. It probably just the lifter ate the lobe. I have seen it. Saw a stock one eat the lobe right there in the shop one day. Shosh is saying, will an upgrade torque converter get rid of cam pulse in the brake pedal? Yeah, it will. If you're talking about just an overly aggressive lope, a more aggressive converter will do that, and you can sometimes, depending on the cam, tune a lot of that lope out of the camshaft as well. So a couple of different options for you as well. Dr. Div saying is curious about Brisk. Yeah, I don't know. And then Dr. Div's asking, what about when we go to high boost above 15 PSI? Again, check your ring gap. I'd say 23 is where I would run them, really getting into the high pressure. The high cylinder pressure areas is what's going to kill you. Speed Free. Good evening, Professor B. Just got a huge thank you for spending time with us in these chats, man. Thank you for hanging out with me, man. Sam saying, I love my trucks. My neighbors not so much. I like it. My neighbors love my stuff. Kenneth is asking, what about the 2 lease drive shaft in the, oh, he's talking about piece. What about the 2-piece drive shaft in the Hellcat? Well, if you're talking about the red-eye drive shaft that I have, it's fantastic. It's amazing. They need to make that an open line item. Mopar does. And I think it should be the stock shaft in all the Hellcats. I've had nothing but good luck with that drive shaft. I lost nothing in terms of ET, 60 foot, mile an hour, 8th mile, nothing went by the wayside by going with a drive shaft that weighed in total 8 pounds more. It buttery smooth, and again, I mean, I couldn't say anything better about it. The downside is if you can't get your hands on one, then you're going to have to go with a one piece from like DSS or QA or whoever else is out there. The stock Hellcat drive shaft is fine if you're not taking the car to the drag strip, though, and I want to make that perfectly clear. If you're just running around on the street having fun with it, you've got drag radial so that the car actually can hook a little bit better on the street, don't worry about your stock drive shaft. That's not where the thing comes into play. It's not where the issues really come into play. The issues come into play if you're taking the car to the drag strip and it's dead hooking a lot. That's where that stock Hellcat drive shaft can give you a problem. The reason why the Red Eye and the Demon drive shaft, it's the same part number. The reason why they are so much better or more robust is that the secondary shaft is a lot thicker on those drive shafts. I put a video together on that, and you can hear me ringing them by just thumping them. The stock shaft sounds hollow. The Red Eye and the Demon, ding. I mean, you can hear how much thicker that metal is just by thumping it. It's heavier gauge steel. It's just going to last a lot longer, and you're not going to run into the problems that you would run into with a stock drive shaft with it twisting, just basically just turning that thing into pasta looking whenever, you know, just a cumulative effect, issues, wheel hop, dead hooking, high trashing, the whole bit. So there's that for you. But that's what's up with that two-piece drive shaft. And nobody really is making an affordable two-piece right now anyway. So until somebody does, I can't really speak on it. Juan B. Mason, I have a 2015 SRT 392 with only 18,000 miles. When is it safe to do mods on this motor? About 17,500 miles ago. Get after it. That's when I started messing with my 392. Let's see. Justin's checking in. Anyone here know anything about Mopar updating the stock MDS lifters? I hope they don't eat my cam again. Actually, they did. My understanding is Magnetti Morelli updated those in 2014, 2015, sometime around in that area, and the actual production run started, I think, 2016. So if you get replacements, my understanding is that they're all the updated lifters, and I can tell you this, as far as fleet vehicles, we use Dodge trucks for all of our fleet vehicles. They all have the 5.7s, and we've got fleet 5.7 Hemis that are out there with 170, 180,000 miles that are running like champs. So no issues there, but they're also all 2018 trucks. King's checking in saying, hey, B. Mason, what is the difference between a 392 and a Hellcat engine? Can I get better power with a Ford 392 engine with a power adder? All right, so there's a lot of differences between the two, but just academically, the difference is the Hellcat engine is the 392 with a 5.7 crank is how you come up with the 6.2 liter. Oddly enough, when the Hellcat engine was in development, it was actually the 6.4 liter. That got kicked to the curb, though, I would guess, because they started figuring out that boost and a ringland that is only about that thin don't go together very well. And if you tighten those ring gaps up too tight, the way that they do on the NA cars for efficiency, you start to run into problems with those things closing in and popping ringlands. So put a shorter stroke so that the thing likes a little bit more RPM. Drop the ringland down on the piston, make the piston a little bit bigger, or a little bit taller, I should say, and you'll be in good shape. And that's really the academic difference between the two. There are other differences. Aside from the piston and obviously the crankshaft, the rods are beefier for the Hellcat than they are for the 6.4, but there's plenty of guys that have made a lot of power with 6.4s. And I wouldn't necessarily say that you can get better power with a Ford's 392 versus a 6.2, and I'll tell you why. So when you start talking about power adders, whether it's nitrous, but in this case probably boost, and more than likely it's going to be a supercharger, the rotating assembly is only there to service the platform in two different areas. One, it's there to motivate the vehicle when you are not under boost. So the larger the engine, the more responsive that it will be. Compression ratio for compression ratio. Aside from that, the only reason why that thing turns is to spin the supercharger to make boost. So by that understanding, displacement is a bit of a, it doesn't really matter as much when you start talking about boost. RPM, compression ratio, things like that, those are things that NA guys are really more concerned with. When it comes to boost, if you don't have enough compression ratio, just throw more boost at it. If you can't turn the thing to a high enough RPM, more boost, please. Better fuel quality you'll need for sure, but still the idea is the same. So, you know, if you need any other way of looking at it, think GTR. You know, 3.5 liter, tons of boost, lots of horsepower, goes like fast. Okay, so think of it in those terms. Don't worry about displacements, where a lot of guys get it completely twisted. Displacement only offers better drivability and easier tunability on lower boost and under partial throttle conditions. Aside from that, if you're shooting for the moon, it really doesn't matter. And I will throw this in there for good measure, by the way. If you've got a 392 and you're thinking about going forged internals and throwing boost at it as an alternative to a Hellcat, you're forgetting a couple of big picture items here that are going to throw a monkey wrench into that idea. First of all, it's the transmission. You don't have enough transmission to deal with the kind of power that you're looking for if you're going after this with a 392. HP 70 isn't there. You're going to have to go with an HP 90 conversion to get any real semblance of drivability and durability out of the car. Real talk on that straight away. Drive shaft should be a foregone conclusion. You're going to need to get a drive shaft to go along with that. But more to the point, it's a money thing. It's cost. I'm here to tell you that unless you picked up a scat pack on the hella cheap, it's not going to serve you too well to have something that you still owe a considerable amount of money on, start throwing even more money at it to try to get power levels equal to a Hellcat when you can take that car, get rid of it, trade it in, and find a Hellcat. The difference in money might be a little bit more than what you would spend to get the power out of the car, but it certainly won't be more than throwing that transmission and another drive shaft into the mix. And at the end of the day, it's a Hellcat, which is going to always retain its value better. So down the line, that investment will pay off in a higher resale. And to be honest with you, I mean, take a page out of my book. All you need is a gear and a tune, or a trans tune in my case. Hell, I'm not even adding timing to this thing. Stock boost, don't even have catch cans on this contraption. And in decent air, or in shitty air right now, I'm running 1050, 1060. So make a goal for yourself. Figure out where you want to be in terms of power, ET, whatever it is that you're going to want to do with the car. Make sure you've got the right platform to go forward with that, and then make sure that the budget will carry it. So there you go. Let's see, Dr. Diff saying, overlooked comment. I might have done that. I have the NGK alphabet soup. That's the one you want. Perfect. Yeah, stay away from the brisk, man. They suck. Unless they don't suck now, and then my bad, but every car that we were running brisk in had major problems. Sam saying, high idle in my 05 2500 diesel causes my windows on my house to rattle. Oh, sweet. Shawnee is saying, next time at the track, I'm going to try 100 octane fuel in track mode. Track mode shifts hard. Thoughts? Can't hurt to try. You know what? One of the things is, before I put the trans tune in my car, track mode sucked at the drag strip. You know, with me having numbed some of the torque management features, it might actually make it better. I just haven't even driven my car since I've taken it to the track last because it's been raining. But I say give it a whirl. I've been data logging so much that I didn't want to break my data collecting. But that will be what I'll be doing next time it goes to the drag strip. Let's see. Oh, sweet. Here, Speed Freak saying, saw a cool truck at the track last night. Lightning remake, the new F-150 Sport with suspension bolt-on Whipple, making 6.5 to the wheels. Talk about fun. Man, I'll tell you what, I am a huge fan of that truck. There is a dealership in Georgia, I think. Anyway, you guys can Google this one, but yeah, they've got kind of a remake of the Lightning. It's got kind of a throwback looking Lightning style wheel on there. Going with either a Whipple or a TDS supercharger, making right at 600, 650 to the rear wheels. Thing looks like a badass, and I'll tell you what, it looks like it is a blast to drive too. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that truck. Hokin's in saying, hey B, my Charger's Cat Pack has 44,000 miles on it. On light to medium braking, I get some vibration in the steering wheel and pedal. Am I looking at warped rotors? You very well could be. That is the symptom for warped rotors. Get that checked out. I bet you they are. Scat Pack, any good way to search for cars on Facebook Marketplace nationwide? I would say just go into Facebook Marketplace and search vehicles. I don't know about how they do them nationwide, but we found my wife's Camaro on Facebook Marketplace. So yeah, and it was literally right down the street from here, oddly enough. But I don't know about the rest of that. Sam's checking in. So I've learned to park my exhaust face away from my house. It might be a good idea to do that anyway. Let's see. D's checking in saying, I just did a 285 pulley in Demon Injectors and was told 2015 Hellcats need spark plugs, but 2016 and up don't. Why is that? That is bullshit because they all have the same plugs. I can't tell you why that would be, but they all have the same plugs. Sam's saying, so the Hellcat motor is kind of like a 6.4 Cummins then. Yeah, it kind of is. It's just extremely... Here's the funny thing about the Hellcat platform that completely gets overlooked. Guys, there are a lot of pulleyed and fueled Hellcats that are making over 1,000 horsepower at the flywheel that have no issues whatsoever. They are bomb-proof at that point. And this is with stock internals. These are cars that are durable, reliable, get, well, for what they are, good fuel economy. And again, they're at 1,000 horsepower, easy 1,000 horsepower capable short blocks. So I've seen them as high as on Pike's Performance Tunes dyno. I've seen them as high as just over 1,000 horsepower to the rear wheels on a stock short block. So that'll give you an idea of just how robust these engines can be. Zephyr's checking in and saying, what up, Professor Mason? Got the fist bump, saying Lemon Lod the Miata, third trends and 14,000 miles, second gear synchros. Damn. Probably going to make my 09 SRT my autocross toy. Anything new under the sun to update, add, and swap? Man, I don't know. I'd say just get it out there and have fun with it. That's my suggestion. When it comes to doing stuff like that, throwing the kitchen sink at the car, man, I say go for it. There's a few companies that make some coilover conversions. Those are pretty good. Upgrading sway bars and all of the things that come with it as far as that goes can be fun. My thing is this, though. As long as you get out there and you're just having fun and developing a skill set, it doesn't really matter what the setup is. Obviously, tires are always going to be a big deal for you to have to worry about. I'd say get the thing out there, get you a beater set of rims because you know you're going to be tearing those things up anyway. Get you a beater set of rims with a set of Arturo AZ850s. If you're going to be playing with this thing on an autocross track, that would be my setup. Tape up your quarter panels, get out there and have a ball with the car. That's what I would do. They're a lot more fun when they're not as built up. I've always found that to be the case too. Let's see. Dr. Div saying, from my understanding, they went down to the 5.7 crank stroke in the 6.2 for RPM benefit. Thoughts? Wonder if the Hellcat forged crank can take the place of 5.7 for added strength. Don't know anything about the swappability for the 5.7. Check it out. It could be. But no, it had nothing to do with RPM. It had more to do with getting the rod to stroke ratio right, getting the right rod length with the right piston height so you could drop the ring land a little bit. So the 6.4 has a longer rod and it is got a shorter piston to try to keep the rod to stroke ratio right. Let's see, Speed Freak, what's the benefit of going catless just for E85? Mainly the benefit for going catless on E85 is the fact that you've got a ton more exhaust mass, so because you have so much more fuel. And the reason why going catless at that point helps is because it really does take that much RPM and that much exhaust flow for the cats to start to be a restriction. That would be the only thing. And plus your EGTs are still going to be, they're not going to be super high, but they're still going to go up pretty high, but the cats just won't be able to flow what that engine's going to want at that point. So that's really where the cats become the restriction. But aside from that, you know, if you're at stock boost, there's really no reason at all to remove the cats. Lined up next to guys with tunes and no cats, and wasn't enough of a difference between the two cars to really call, if I'm being honest. So cats, I like them to be on the car. They're staying on my car, and that's the way that I'm going to roll. So, but again, you start making the big power, you're already on E85. It will add up to a restriction depending on how much power you're making. Let's see. Proton's asking, are Diablo tuners worth investing instead of going to get it tuned from the dealer? I think what you mean is like tuned from a shop. Not really. You know, the canned tunes are okay, but they're only okay. And you're never really, in fact, some of the canned tunes are worse than others. I would prefer to see somebody take their car to a shop that speaks Mopar. That's the big thing. So, you know, a tuner like Pike's Performance Tunes, one that's not going to try to, you know, spin your car to the moon, and it's not going to give you a bunch of false promises. Just say, look, you bring your car in, it's going to run better when you get it back. And to that point, I want to talk about this tuning thing here for just a minute, because some of this kind of near and dear to my heart, and it gets really underneath my skin a little bit. But I understand why. It's more of an annoyance than anything else. It's the question of how much power am I going to get from a tune with the Mopars in general. If you've done any research whatsoever into this topic, you'll find out pretty quickly that tuning isn't really something that is going to extract a lot of power. In this case, really ET, performance, drivability, driving impression that you're going to get. You're not going to get a lot with the Mopars. And the reason for that is because they're already fairly aggressive from the factory. I can tell you that the 392, you'll get some power, but not a boatload, say 15 to 20 horsepower. Hellcats, depending on how you're going about getting the power safely, you can extract on a cool down pass, say 30 to 40 horsepower. It doesn't sound like a lot for the amount of coin that you're shelling out, but the reality is that these modern cars, they're already tuned to make quite a bit of power from the factory as it sits. Cars ride the knock sensors like you wouldn't believe. They're already throwing as much timing as they possibly can at the car, and then they're reeling it back whenever the knock sensors start to pick up on either real or false knock. But the reality is that you're already getting as much as you can possibly get. So it's difficult to improve upon that tune because it's already fairly aggressive from the factory. So when you go to put a tune on a car and it's a canned tune like the Diablo will give you, the issue is that they're only going to give you just a little bit, and in most cases it's not really enough to even notice. You won't really see anything substantial on the dyno, but more to the point, you're not going to feel anything when you drive the car. You're better off taking the car to somebody who knows what they're doing, give it a little bit of timing, throw some fuel at it, adjust the spark modifiers accordingly, and then give you a little bit better driver demand torque, which is basically make the gas pedal more sensitive and change up your shift points to where the car actually drives more spiritedly. That's where you see the improvement, not in the power gain. So again, just my 2 cents on that, the Diablo can stuff. Slash is checking in saying, what up, B? What up, Slash? James is checking in. What up, brother? Got the arm flex. What up, James? Slash is saying, I got a nasty shake while driving over 65. Are warped rotors covered under warranty? 20,000 miles. They might be. If it is under 36,000 miles, it should be in bumper to bumper. So I would take that in and just let them know what's up, and that should be something that's covered under the bumper to bumper. I would pitch a fit if my car at 20,000 miles had warped rotors. Let's see. Aaron's checking in. Damn, you make me all puffy down there. That's nice. Let's see. Oh man, it is early on a Friday or Saturday, whatever day it was. Philip's checking in. Hey B, I just received my 309 diff and have a few questions. Can I reuse the flange bolts? Yes, you can. Do I need to add Mopar limited slip additive? Possibly, if you received it and it didn't have any fluid in it, you're absolutely going to have to do that. Is there a break-in period or just let it eat? I always like to let them break in a little bit. 500 miles is what I would suggest. You want to make sure that the clutches are saturated, make sure everything's mixed in. Let the metal parts kind of mesh together a little bit. You want to go through that natural machining process. Once you get that done, I'd say get after it. But, don't baby it in the process. Just don't get out there and do any high-speed runs. Don't take it to the drag strip, basically. Keep it on stock tires, drive it like you normally would. After about 500 miles, throw the drag setup on it, and beat the hell out of it. Have some fun. Phil's checking in. Going in a 2018 Hellcat. You're in good shape, brother. Triple Threat saying, stopping by to say hi. What up? Let's see. Triple Threat saying he stopped the rear diff noise by changing fluid and adding Dodge's friction modifier. Very cool. I think a lot of guys have moved over to not Lucas, but oh hell, whose was it? Anyway, either Mopar or it'll come to me, but not Lucas. Let's see. Let's see. Sam saying the shake can be anything from tires to drive shaft. It's constant vibration and doesn't go away. Oh, well, yeah. Chances if it's a tire and it's progressively bad, you would notice it because it would feel more like a tire shake. If it's something that is happening under braking, that it's for sure a rotor. But I'm assuming that. Oh, wait a minute. R. Gibbs saying, hey man, love the comment. Keep it coming. Converted a buddy to a scat shaker with your knowledge, and now he drags my Mustang. Go figure. Well, thanks, Gibbs. I appreciate that, man. I truly do. Definitely thank you for the contribution to the cause, man. I truly appreciate that. He just popped up. Thank you so much, man. Togo's checking in saying hello. James saying, glad to see you're not affected by the weather. Yeah, man, it was pretty bad. So we had a couple of barges break loose down here and took out part of one of the bridges on I-10. That was a treat. But yeah, pretty cool. Let's see. Speed Freak's asking, did you end up keeping the red-eye drive shaft in your car to stay? Yes, the red-eye drive shaft is in the car to stay for sure. Love that thing. Jose's asking, what software do you recommend, HP Tuner or Diablo, and why? I prefer HP Tuners because that's what I'm comfortable with. When it comes to tuning, a lot of guys, you just kind of stick with what you learned first, and I learned HP Tuning first, or Tuners first for tuning, so that's what I'm sticking with. I like it because it's a bit more intuitive than the Diablo, and they stay on top of updates very well. So they're constantly trying to improve, and I think that's another good thing as well. So HP Tuners, for me, it's what a lot of tuners use, mainly because of the support that you get, and it just, to some guys, it's just more intuitive. It is not to say that HP Tuners is better than Diablo. It's completely false. They both get the same job accomplished, just it's chocolate or vanilla, really, is how that boils down. Let's see. Sam's checking in with Slash. Jose's asking, how much horsepower do you recommend before you need to build a red-eye block? None, actually. If you're dealing with the stock Hellcat, let her eat, man. The only time I would suggest upgrading the internals on a Hellcat is if something goes catastrophically bad and you've got to fix something, or you're buying something like a rotating assembly anyway. At that point, yeah, go ahead and upgrade, because the cost difference isn't going to be huge, although it's not cheap. I mean, you're already spending money, but realistically, no, I don't see a reason to do it. And again, what are your goals? I mean, are you asking me, should you swap it out in terms of rotating assembly at 1,000 horsepower? No, there are tons of stock Hellcat short blocks making over 1,000 horsepower at the flywheel. What are you really planning on doing with this thing? Going to the drag strip every single weekend with your car. I would still say that up to 1,000, 1,100 horsepower flywheel horsepower, you'd be fine. I would say the only time you need to start worrying about it is, to be honest with you, probably somewhere on a Mustang dyno, somewhere north of 1,100 horsepower to the rear wheels. I would say 1,000 horsepower might get your mind working, but anything less than that, I wouldn't worry at all about that stock short block. And really, even at that point, the only reason why I'm even saying that is because of the weight of the vehicle more than anything else. Sam saying diesel are still undertuned. All of them are. Johnny's saying nice Mustang. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I do have a nice Mustang. Kata's saying, hey B, I have a line on a new red-eye drive shaft. Should I pull the trigger? Whoa, what happened here? To install on my 16 Hellcat, is it 100% swap? It is a 100% swap. Yes, it is. It is an easy swap, and it's a swap that I say should have been, I mean, it should be something from the factory that is, it just blows my mind that the Hellcat drive shaft, even leading into 2017, 2018, was still the same, more or less, drive shaft that people were wadding up on 2015 cars. It's, I don't know, to me it's a little bit, I don't know, irresponsible to market a car with a bunch of rock and roll music, tire smoke, and, you know, guys drifting it and all that stuff. Well, I guess in that case, it really doesn't hurt the stock drive shaft. But if you're talking about taking the car to the drag strip, I would say, yeah, you're going to want to get a better drive shaft, and the red eye is right up your alley if you can get your hands on one. Truth Red is, what's the difference between a red eye and a standard Hellcat drive shaft? The red eye and the Demon both have the same drive shaft, and on the second prop shaft, basically, they've gone in and they have strengthened all the material on that secondary shaft. It's I want to say it's 20% thicker. It's you can actually hear the difference. I actually made a video on that where you can hear me thumping both of them. I weighed both of them. A lot of different things that I did to try to show the differences between the two. The red eye / Demon drive shaft is just a stronger piece. It's dimensionally identical and visually identical. You cannot tell the difference just looking at them, which one you got in your hand. So, but the red eye and the Demon are stronger. Kenneth is asking, I got a 285 pulley. Do I need more than Demon 700cc injectors? I would say yeah, but no. It's kind of a, so here's my thing. I wouldn't really worry about Demon injectors. I would get a set of injectors that are rebuildable, first of all. Get a set of ID 1000s, get a set of FIC 127s, something along those lines. Something that you can buy, make sure that you get them flow tested, make sure you get them flow balanced. That's what I would do. I wouldn't, they're all the same, and they're really, you'd be surprised how far off some of these stock injectors can be. And when you really start wanting to make power, you don't want, and you've only got two O2 sensors, that are going to be the ones that are making all the changes to your car, bank 1 and bank 2, left and right. They're making wholesale changes per bank, and we're talking about 4 cylinders that are combining to make this one pulse. Or this one AFR per side. So if one injector is lean and one is rich, you get a net result of, well, everything's checking out. Anyway, some things that we've run into with Hellcat injectors. I've sent a set of Hellcat injectors off to Fuel One, which is a business here in Houston. Keith is the owner. Really big into injectors, really good about being an honest businessman. And I've sent him injectors, stock Hellcat, and he's like, yeah, no, these aren't even worth trying to mess with. Just get a set of aftermarket injectors and call it good. So I just go by what the guys that know this stuff better than I do work with. I would say by, if you're already getting the car tuned, here's the other thing. When it comes to injectors, please don't go cheap on injectors. It is the one thing that if they fail or if there's an issue with them, it will possibly cause your car to blow up. And I get it. If they're brand new from the factory, yeah, it's the least expensive way to get a bigger injector in the car, but it's not a better injector in the car. And look, there's a ton of guys that are out there that are running their Demons and running their red eyes and making plenty of power and not having any issues with their injectors. That's great. Those cars were born with those injectors. They were brand new when the car was first fired up. I would caution you, if the red eye / Demon injectors that you're getting, make sure that they are brand new when you buy them. I don't like recommending folks buying used injectors. Number one, because they can't be, the stock ones, they're not going to be able to be rebuilt the way that a set of like aftermarket Bosch injectors can be rebuilt. The second thing is, man, look, if they've been sitting around, they get varnished up, whatever the case is, you just don't know. It's an electrical part. They can fail just sitting on the shelf. Again, use your better judgment here, but don't try to save a couple of $100 on a set of injectors when you're driving around in a, $70,000 car. Let's see. King's checking in saying, I'm wondering, is it possible to daily drive a 900 wheel horsepower Hellcat? How do you get to that mark safely? Oh, yeah, there's plenty of guys. Racer X, a perfect example of that. His car on a dyno jet would make right about 900 horsepower or more. And the way you go about it, it's the right parts and the right tune are all that you need. Basically, 10% lower, 285 or 275 upper on corn. That, fuel pumps that go along with that, you're going to need a solid tune to make it work. But yeah, I mean, it works great. And keep in mind, you're not driving the thing at 900 horsepower all the time. I mean, if you want to blip the throttle, it's there for you. But I mean, going down the highway, you're making and using the same amount of power that the guy in a stock car right next to you is making. So, a stock camshaft, stock everything else, I mean, the car is going to drive like a stock car. It just happens to make a lot more power, and that's why that Pikes Performance Bravo package is so popular, is because, I mean, hell, it's the generic recipe for a 9-second Mopar with daily drivability, daily durability, by the way, and with the only real difference between, I'm sliding around over here, the only real difference between that car and a stock car in terms of maintenance is you're going to want to change the oil more because you're running it on E85. That's not just a Mopar thing on E85. That's any vehicle that you're running on E85, you're going to want to run your maintenance schedule up a notch or two. Instead of changing it at 6,000 miles, you'll be changing it at about 3,000 miles. Oh man, I got some kind of a freaking thing in my face over here. Code is saying, thanks, bud. If I buy it, I won't be able to return it because I can't give them a good VIN. You're the man. I'll go ahead and pull the trigger. Yeah, I mean, like I say, multiple Mopars hooked me up with his for this car, and it's the drive. So, works like a charm in this thing. Let's see, Midwest time, like me. Triple threat, can you put a red-eye drive shaft on a Scat Pack? No, you cannot. The transmissions are different lengths. Speed Freak's asking, can you explain what a window switch is and progressive control with nitrous? I'd love to. First of all, a window switch only allows the nitrate to start delivering nitrous at, say, 3,000 RPM, and you want it to stop delivering nitrous, or more to the point, you want it to window switches have it shut off. It is not there to arm the nitrous system, or it will have to be armed for that window switch to work. It should go without saying, but just know that if you're driving around and you go wide open throttle and the nitrous system isn't on, the window switch isn't going to turn it on for you, but it is only there to activate the delivery of nitrous throughout that RPM range. Now, a progressive controller, when the nitrous system is told to start to deliver nitrous oxide, the progressive controller will ramp in the nitrous oxide up to its 100% duty cycle. Basically, what it'll do is it'll only allow a certain amount of nitrous oxide and a certain amount of fuel to pass through the system at a time, up to a predetermined 100% duty cycle at, whichever, however you want to make it come in, which could be in time, or it could be by duty cycle of the injector. So let's say in this case that your window switch activates the nitrous at 3,000 RPM, and then 1 second after it comes on, after it's activated, then it will ramp up the duty cycle within 1 second to 100%, so you don't get this big shock of nitrous on your driveline. Hopefully that answers the question. Sam saying, my drive shaft on my 15 3500 went off balance at 23,000 miles. I swear I wasn't doing burnouts, but I really wasn't. It's just a fluke thing. Bummer. Dr. Diff is saying, we tested 3 sets of them new in the box over the past year, and oh man, there's never any matching those. He's talking about the Hellcat injectors, and yeah, they're all over the board in some cases. Joe T's checking in. Ram RT versus Charger RT. What do you think? Charger RT will beat the Ram RT, but it won't be as fun. Scat Speed, what up? Get all the thumbs up. I like it. Juan Rodriguez, B. Mason, I have seen and heard other Hemi 392 owners talk about the Hemi tick. Is that bad in a way on these new Hemi motors? Oh, well, so the Hemi tick has more to do with exhaust manifold bolts on 5.7s, more really than 392s. It's at least a lot more common on the 5.7. And what it is, it's the exhaust manifold bolt backing out, mainly due to heat cycling and, I don't know, pixies, gremlins, I don't know. Anyway, they have a tendency to back out, and that's kind of a bit of a problem. The exhaust, what that tick is when you first fire it up, it's the exhaust passing past that gasket. But as things heat up, it actually kind of swells back shut, and that's what makes that tick go away. So the problem is, over time that can cause you to eat an exhaust gasket potentially. But the other tick is there's actually 2 Hemi ticks. The second Hemi tick, which is the bad one, is the one that doesn't go away when the car warms up. And if you apply slight throttle, it'll go away. And then when you lift off the throttle at idle, it comes back. That is a lifter going bad. And that is something that the other Hemi tick, which is a much bigger pain in the ass to have to deal with. The best advice I can give you on that is catch it early, get it to the dealership, and pitch a fit until they get it fixed. A new set of lifters will typically fix the problem unless you let it go for too long, and then that lifter can wipe out your camshaft, which means if it's still under warranty, you get a new camshaft and a new set of lifters. If it's not, then you got a big old bill that you got to pay, which is not cool at all. But I want to get, okay, so getting back into modifying the Hellcats. And again, a good question earlier about that Diablo tuner. I have seen Diablo tune, a canned tune, look absolutely horrible. I mean, it was just one of those things where the wide open throttle timing table just was flagged at a number that didn't make any sense whatsoever. Had all of the torque management removed, which is not a good idea for these HP 70s and HP 90s. I've just seen some things, man, when it comes to tuning, and it can really, it can really grate on you a little bit. And again, a lot of that has to do with a couple of things. One, being from Houston, low altitude. When it gets cold down here, we get negative DA. I mean, we're not talking like negative 200-300 DA where everybody's, oh, yay, negative. No. We get negative 1,500. We get negative 2,000. We get, in some cases, over a negative 2,000 foot DA. When you consider the fact that the power goes up 3% per every 1,000 feet, another 6% worth of power, that's a lot. I mean, that's a considerable amount of power that you're going to have to be contending with. You've got to be able to tune for that. You've got to be able to have provisions for that in terms of timing, fuel quality. All that becomes even more important. And for the most part, stock cars just are unaffected by negative DAs. It's the fueling that you have to worry about. Those are the issues that you have to deal with. The tune can manage it, but can the fuel manage it? That's the issue. That's why I always say, you start getting into real deep DAs, throw a little bit of race gas and thing, just to be on the safe side, especially when it comes to tuning, because some of these guys try to throw the kitchen sink at some of these tunes. And yeah, I've seen them completely turn knock sensors off. I've seen them throw tons of timing at these things, and they still run. And that's the other thing that I want to talk about too. The question about, built 392 versus a Hellcat. Look, there are some things about the Hellcat engine that just blow my mind, regardless of what the build is on paper. Nothing can take away from the fact that the Hellcats just will deal with a lot more abuse than really they should be able to deal with. It has surprised me, to say the least, the condition of some of the tunes, number one, that Hellcats have survived. It has surprised me as far as some of the things that have gone wrong with Hellcats that could have been far worse, all things considered. The fact that, but it's typically in the tune, but I've seen Hellcats eat catalytic converters. I've seen them pop ringlands. I've seen them do all kinds of crazy crap, and it never showed up on a data log. The car ran great. At least the one that popped a ringland, he didn't even know that there was anything wrong with it. But the damn thing came in with a misfire, and it was because the spark plug gap was smashed shut. So the strap was actually just on the plug. So put another plug in it. Car ran fine. Bore scoped it. And there's a chunk missing out of the piston. So in that case, it was just coming from somewhere else. Bad tune, and I think the car was running around like that for over a year. So go figure. Just see. Sean saying, never had the Hemi tick on his 392. Just sounded like a tough pushrod engine. Liked it. I like it. Dr. Diff's asking, what do you think of the new E15 fuel on a performance side of things? Pops has been very curious about it. I told him to fill it up and let me data log it to go over a couple of tanks. That's what I would do. I'm not a huge fan of E15, though. I know that modern cars are fine because they'll deal with an amount of ethanol, but you start getting E15 into older cars and it's going to be a bit of a problem because the fuel pumps are just not designed to be submerged in ethanol that way. You start getting into corrosion problems and things like that. So, but I don't know, man, from a performance standpoint, I don't know. If you can get it and it's, instead of 93, if it's 95 octane, okay, I guess I can be kind of cool with it at that point, but I'm not really worried about, I'm not really liking the fact that I've got to deal with E15. For me, it just means that you got to run more fuel. If fuel economy is going to go down, you're going to have to run more fuel to make the same power. Okay, well, that can be worked around in a tune. And in fact, the tune itself will find a way around that just because it'll adjust to stoichiometric, but basically to zero lambda. But yeah, from the fact that it even exists kind of blows my mind. Doctor is saying the station down the road started selling it. What's the octane rating on it? Is it a higher octane to where you can actually do something with it? Or is it just 93 octane that's got more ethanol in it than gasoline? I don't know. I guess that's the big question for me. I would hate to, have to deal with a fuel that gets me the same performance, but it's going to cost me more in, I don't know, well, in two ways. One, it's going to be more hydrophilic, so you got to watch out for that. Two, it's going to be a bit more taxing on the fuel system. I don't know, man. Not a big fan of the E15. Let's see. Sam is saying, talking about shaker, an almost 8-foot drive going off balance is almost as bad as death wobble, but not quite as bad. I've had both in two different vehicles. I had a death wobble in a truck that I test drove once. If you can believe that. It's an F-150 of all things. Pretty scary. Dr. Div's talking about the E80, your E15 rather, saying, I think it's labeled at, I guess, unleaded 88 and 94, or UNL 88 and 94. I don't know, man. I'd be a little bit leery of that. If it's labeled straight up R versus M, R times M divided by 2, and it comes out at 94, it's like, not really seeing that being a monster benefit. But Anyway, so anyway, getting back into, you know, the do's and don'ts on these Hellcats, the big thing for me is know your fuel quality, know what you can get away with, and know what you're going to be doing with the car before you start throwing lots of coin at it. That's probably the best advice I can give. I've just seen guys get a little bit carried away with their cars, and I can tell you this, I only know of maybe a handful, a little bit over a handful of guys that have really thrown the kitchen sink at one of the Hellcats or at one of the Mustangs. I'll take this a step farther. The Hellcats and the Mustangs, I only know of a couple of, like a little bit more than a handful of guys that have thrown a bunch of mods at the cars and ended up keeping them. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that it just, you know, more power, more problems. That's basically how it winds up. You start to find every weak link in the car once you start throwing a lot of power at it. And I got to be honest with you, that's what turns most guys off the fastest. They see what's going on the internet. They go to the drag strip. They see somebody making some passes and they want to be that guy. Man, I get it. I understand that. So you throw a lot of money at the car, but you build it from the front to the back as opposed to the right way, which is from the back to the front. And you start to figure out pretty quickly that the parts that are failing are big ticket items. Not a good thing. And that's why I always say, have a plan and work the plan from tail to nose. If you know that you're going to be building a 9-second car, don't go throw all your money at the engine, the pulleys, the fuel system, and everything else, and neglect to put a drive shaft in the car, neglect to put a set of half shafts in the car at that point. These are the areas that are going to sting you first. And when they go bad in a bad way. And the tow bill is never less than $400. And then the parts themselves are going to be pricey. Set of half shafts will cost you $1,600. That's just the way that it goes. Drive shaft's going to cost you about $1,000. I get it. It sucks. You're going to have to pay somebody to put them in more than likely. That's another expense unless you can do the work yourself. I think you can see where I'm going with this. It's not an inexpensive proposition to get one of these barges down the drag strip into the low 10s or into the 9s. You just have to make sure that if you choose to do that, that you're doing and you're going about it the right way. You're doing the things that are going to make the car durable so that you're not mad as hell when the thing breaks and you got the thing on the back of a truck. It sucks like that. So, and then of course, make sure that you're dealing with somebody that does speak the language of Mopar, because if you don't, what are you doing this for anyway? That's the biggest issue I've seen. That is what blows up more cars than anything else, is guys just trying to get either overly aggressive or getting greedy with the package as it sits. That's what'll hurt you in the long run. Dr. is saying, my thoughts as well. Great minds think alike. D's asking, do we use Diablo or HP tuners? HP tuners. All the way, HP tuners. Speed Freaks asking, hey, what temps are too cold for the track? Was 58 last night and heard of a lot of complaints of waiting in staging lanes too long. Try not staying warm enough, or track not staying warm enough for traction. I don't know, man. I mean, when we have the track rental in January at Moparmageddon, it's 38, 42 degrees. So as long as the track is prepped properly and you're running on a decent enough tire, the hell is that? You'll be in good shape. You don't have anything to worry about that. Keep enough heat in the tires and you'll be fine. Keep the engine oil temp above, say, 160 degrees and you'll be in good shape there too. When it starts to get bad is if the tires start to get cold, guys aren't doing a long enough burnout. 45 degrees and less can certainly potentially cause some issues for the track, but again, if it's prepped properly, it should hold most cars. Just my opinion on that. Sam saying, I'm not a fan of any ethanol-based fuel mix. Neither am I. Sam saying, I like RV gas and race gas and biodiesel, straight diesel off-road. You know what's funny is that there's some Buc-ee's down here. Buc-ee's is the greatest place on the planet. It's a gas station and an adventure all in one. But anyway, they're selling non-ethanol fuels at a couple of the gas stations down here. I think it's 88 octane and 92 octane that they're selling. Big hits for guys with lawn equipment, with motorcycles, with watercraft, things like that. They are thanking Buc-ee's left and right for that. Dr. Noob saying, yeah, big ticket items. I put a trans in just before Christmas, if you remember. Yes, I do. Such a wonderful thing with 5 kiddos between the wife and I. Yeah, no kidding, man. Yeah, it stings too. It's a lot of bread. Hemi had saying, in my SE, southeast neck of the woods, it seems like there is a hint of fall in the air. Probably just wishful thinking, but looking forward to a test and tune night with less than 2,000 plus DA. Got the hang looses on that for sure, man. I'm waiting on that. Crypto's asking, any source red-eye half shafts? Hey, Mason, no, I haven't even looked into it, to be honest with you. I was really more worried about the drive shaft than anything else. But same place you would get your drive shaft, I would look into that for half shafts. I don't know if those are VIN specific though. They may or may not be. I'm not sure. Dr. Div saying, and I got that HP 70 for cheap, $1,100 plus 500 in fluid. Used trans, and my wife's works for a dealer. Very nice. Got the fluid at the dealer worker price. Yep. God, stuff's expensive. $11 a quart, I think. Last time I checked, I think it was $11 a quart. Sam's asking, do any of you know EFI tuning or HP for diesel? I have not messed with it. Let's see. Speed Freak, thank you very much. Saying, appreciate all your help, Professor Mason. You will be my cure for winter blues with these chats. Man, I appreciate that, Speed Freak. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much for that, man. I truly appreciate that. Yeah, and this winter is going to be fun for me. So, we got boost weather coming, y'all. Hell yeah, I'm going to be having a ball with this thing. Hemi had saying, actually, he has been trying to casually connect with Randall at Pikes to talk about tuning for a scat pack and adding nitrous, and have been missing him. We'll keep trying. Yeah, stay on him. I know they've been a little bit busy here lately. Yeah, hit him up, and I'm sure that he will. He should be getting back with you this week coming. I'm sure. I know they got swamped last week, so bear with him. But he will be getting back with you, I'm sure. But keep calling him until he answers the phone. Slash is saying, I think my rotors may be warped because I went from 150 to a stop very, very quickly. Yeah, you might have overheated them, man. Time to get you some new rotors. Let's see. Dr. Div saying, I want to know where you get it for $11 a quart. My cost was like 16 a quart, and the wife and 22 for the shop. I mean, I want to say we were getting that from Helfman Dodge. But you have to check on that. And it's been a while since I had to look into it. But yeah, it's pretty damn expensive. But then again, there for a while, we were buying a lot of transmission fluid. We had HP 70s blowing apart left and right. It wasn't really funny. My car was like towards the last 3/4 of that when my HP 70 let go. But yeah, we had HP 70s that were giving up the ghost on the regular, and then we had who the hell was it? Jerry over at Southern Hot Rods. We had a bunch of his transmissions coming in, and yeah, so that was a real treat. Let me tell you. What happened here? Big Daddy's asking, do you have a lift for working on your car? I have access to a lift, but I never do use it. I do all of my work here in the garage, on ramps, and on jack stands. Because I don't have a lot of access to a lift. I have some access to a lift. If I need it in a pinch, I can use it, but No, all of my work is done here at the house on my back, just like you guys. And actually, I'll be honest with you, in some ways, I mean, I guess you adapt and you know, you just kind of work with what you got. But there are some jobs that are actually a little bit easier for me to do on my back, or at least I've found workarounds. And I can tell you that drive shafts, yeah, I can turn those pretty quickly on my back. So, just kind of sad, really. I have done so many drive shaft installs on this car back here. I'm getting a little bit too good at that. I wonder if I can parlay that into a second job. But yeah, but in speaking of that, so drive shafts, you know, the issues that I've had with drive shafts, you know, it's funny. I guess overly sensitive to drive shaft issues. I think I'm complaining. I can complain about stuff, I should say, or I can be frustrated by things that really wouldn't bother other people. So, but you can't beat stock in terms of smoothness, that's for sure. Let's see. Dr. saying that magic number. Goodbye C clutch. Yeah. So we're talking about 70s here, and again, it goes back to the question of, can I build my 392 to make Hellcat power? The short answer to that is, yeah, hell yeah, you can. But will it hold the power? It being the rest of the car. I mean, unless you're just building a car to make a dyno number and you're running the thing around on stock tires, it doesn't really matter if you can make more power, if your transmission is going to give up the ghost at some point because its torque rating has been exceeded. And this is another issue that comes into play where you've got the problem with the HP70 is that it will hold the power for a while and then it won't hold it anymore. Then it lets go. And that's when you have the problem. And the funny thing about it is that some guys will say, oh, well, I've got an HP70 and it is doing okay right now. There's a big difference between doing just fine and surviving. You know, there's a difference between being alive and living. Okay, so that's kind of the difference between HP70 and HP90. HP90 will manage whatever kind of power you want to throw at it realistically. I mean, no, you can't put it behind a top fuel dragster, but the idea is for any power number or any power level that's realistic for street use, the HP90's got you covered, no problems. I think the only time guys have really started having issues with HP90s is when you start getting into the 14 to 1500 horsepower range. And at that point, you don't need the gear multiplication of all the 8 gears anyway. You'd probably be better served going with like a turbo 400 swap, high stall converter, and you're building something either for drag racing or if you're doing mile events or half mile events, probably better served to go with a manual transmission in that respect anyway. So, it really, if you're going into those types of venues, you just pick the wrong gun to shoot with. So, I don't know. I think that for what guys will spend on those cars, I think it's a noble endeavor, but from a practical standpoint, it just stops making sense. So, for me, that's really where I draw the line. Is when the difference is practically outside of the realm of making sense. And for me, okay, so give you an idea. For me, where would I draw the line, I guess is the next question, right? I would say that if it's my money, I would probably, with an HP70, with no plans on doing an HP90 swap, which is a very recent thing, by the way, with no plans on doing the swap, I would probably say that somewhere around 550 horsepower would be my breakover point. And I would say 550 horsepower only because chances are if you're making that kind of power, you've probably gone with a centrifugal supercharger. And if you've gone that route, then your torque hit is not going to be that hard. You could probably stretch that to 575 horsepower, maybe even 600 horsepower, which would put you right there on top of a Hellcat. But what you need to understand is that if you're making the same horsepower as a Hellcat, you're not making near the same torque as the Hellcat. Those are the areas that kill that transmission. So if the question really turns into, well, can an HP70 handle stock Hellcat power? It can handle stock Hellcat horsepower at peak horsepower, but it cannot handle the torque down low. And that's why they don't run HP70s and Hellcats from the factory. Let's see. See, Sam saying, I'm looking to tune my 15 DRW for more power and to get rid of the torque management in gears 1 and 2. I would say mitigate it, don't get rid of it. Dr. Div saying, the night before we hot lapped and several times had fun in Mexico, gave no warning, just let go one day. That's what they do. I mean, and that's the other thing. They don't, in some cases, you get some warning. So, and what are those cases? Well, HP70s, if you're running a root style supercharger, positive displacement supercharger, you'll start to get some slip at about 4,500 RPM, somewhere in that range. Right around peak torque, you'll start to get a little bit of slip. If you're running nitrous, it'll just slip whenever the thing goes into nitrous, you know, however you have it set up. Once it goes into full nitrous mode, that's when you'll start to get the slip. Again, with a centrifugal style supercharger, you won't really get a lot of warning when they start to let go. They just kind of stop working properly. You get a lot of slip out of the transmission at that point. Let's see. Sam saying, I lost my 48 RE on my 05 pulling up the Skyway Bridge, and that was on a stock tune. Well, that will happen even on a stock car. Actually, I've never seen an HP 70 or 90 fail on a stock car that wasn't either being abused or wasn't driver error. I can tell you that. Sam's talking about some more diesel stuff that I have no idea what any of this stuff means. Doesn't have the 68 RFE. He's got the something else in it. That sucks. Oh, good question. Machine is asking, do you prefer M-Power or AMG? Dude, man after my own heart here. AMG, baby, all the way. Look, the reason why I like AMG is because their solution to problems is horsepower. I like that. No, that's for the older cars. The newer stuff, I'm teetering more towards BMWs right now. BMW has a fun habit of over delivering when it comes to power. They're usually a lot more refined with how they go about it too. But nothing sounds as good as AMG stuff. I mean, my E63 was unbelievable. I've known guys with C63s with the M156. That thing is a riot with a tune and exhaust. Those things make a bunch of power, and God, they just sound amazing. So if you're asking me now today which would I choose, it'd be BMW, mainly because I think the M4 is just that good. They sound terrible though, so I'd have to do something about that. But yeah, right now it's just for performance, BMW. For the driving experience, just get the AMG and have fun with it. Do long smoky burnouts. The M5 competition is a beast. Yeah, it is. Freaking love M5s. R-Drive, great show. Can you talk a little bit about your sniper cam for the 392 cars and where we can get it? That is exclusive to Pike's Performance Tunes. And that cam, along with the springs and the push rods and the Hellcat lifters, all of which you need to make that cam work. So that cam is a sweetheart of a cam. That's actually the cam that I designed for my personal car that it actually ended up never going into. I ended up getting a Hellcat instead. But that camshaft was what I felt was going to put that car into the tens with good drivability without so much loss down low as what you would get with maybe a Comp 270 or especially a Comp 274. And the main difference with that camshaft is a very aggressive load profile. It's why I say you have to use PSI 1516 springs with it and 080 push rods. You cannot use stock push rods with that camshaft. But basically you're looking at a camshaft with just over 220 degrees on the intake side, right at 230 degrees on the lobe separation angle, right at 114 degrees. That doesn't tell you a whole lot about the cam. There's a lot more to that cam. Lift is actually fairly low on that cam. But again, to be nasty as sin on the Mexico racing circuit with a few guys. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that little cam, and it is about as far as I would personally take. And this is really more to the point, because the specifications, man, they get lost in the mix. You know, people start talking specifications, but they don't really know what any of these specifications means. And a perfect example of that, I can tell you that a cam has 230 degrees duration on the intake side, 240 degrees on the exhaust duration side, has lobe separation angle of 114, has an intake center line of whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a normal performance grind camshaft. That'll vary within a few degrees. But I can break down a camshaft, and you could have two identical camshafts on paper, but they will perform completely differently. And it all has to do with the actual load profile of the cam, which can also dictate the type of springs that you're going to be using, which will also make a big difference with how that cam works. And what I mean by that is all the lift under the curve, all the lift under peak, that is what makes the difference with camshafts. And if you want to talk camshaft, I'm more than happy to do that. But when I'm putting the camshaft together for the Hemis, the problem with the Hemi, it's a fun problem to have, but it's a very real problem to have. Because of the flow rate of the cylinder heads, they do not allow very much wiggle room. They're not at all forgiving for somebody to go in with a very aggressive, big, dumb, lumbering camshaft. The LS stuff loves it because the heads don't flow as much. We're talking like LS3, especially LS1 stuff. The heads don't flow very well, so they need as much duration as you can throw at it. That's why you can throw all the camshaft in the world at an LS, and all it'll do is just shift the power number up, not only up in numbers, but up in RPM. Where you run with is that the heads flow great, but they're up to very recently, there was no intake manifold that you could turn to accommodate the extra airflow at higher RPMs. We have that now with the Holly. The only downside to that is that now you've turned even a VVT engine into an LS, where, yeah, the more cam you throw at it, the more RPM you can run. But the problem with that is that you're sacrificing upper horsepower for down low torque. Where do you go with that? So I know we kind of got off the subject here a little bit, but the idea with the sniper cam is that with one of Alex's tunes, it really won't lope unless you want it to, and then you can make it chop all you want. But it's easy to tune, number one, picks up about 40 horsepower to the rear wheels, which is on par with anybody's camshaft that's out there. But the main thing that it does better than any other cam so far that I've seen on paper is it retains a lot of mid-range power. And that was the main thing that we were running into with customers with aftermarket camshafts was, yeah, it would make a better number on the dyno, but it sucked in terms of driving experience. So anyway, there's that cam in a nutshell. Get a hold of Pike's Performance and they can get you all you need. And it's P-E-I-T-Z Performance. Tell them you're looking for the CD01. Speed Freak's asking, any problem running an open element air filter while driving in the rain or washing the car? Can water get in through the headlight area? No, you're not going to really get anything in through there. You know, you got to remember that the shaker has got a similar setup, although it doesn't have the snorkel going to the headlight. I really wouldn't worry so much about that. If you are concerned with it, just throw a towel over the top of it. If you've got a Hellcat, they've got the block-off plates for the vent. Go with something like that if you're concerned. You can also get a pre-filter that'll help shed some of that water. Nothing that you do is going to make it perfectly impervious, but you got to remember that Hellcats have got the large panel filter and they've got the direct shot going from the grill straight into the air box. And that doesn't really ever cause any problems for anybody. So just something to consider. Let's see. Sam's saying the 68 RFE is a good trans, but I have the Asian transmission or better one, or the AS69RE. Cool. I know what none of that means because I don't know shit about diesels. Lightning Blue saying, what up, B? What up, Lightning? What's up, man? Spazman saying, have my first experience with that dreaded wheel hop, got out of it fast. A8 Scat Pack tuned, running Mickey Thompson ET Street R's on 17-inch race stars. Any pointers on dealing with wheel hop? One is to get out of it as soon as possible, and two, run the right air pressure when you're running the ET Street R's. Start off around 24 psi. I know a lot of guys are trying to run those things at like 18 or 17 psi, and that's not what that tire is good at. Bump the tire pressure up, your footprint will look better, and it'll hook just as well, and it will have lower rotating resistance. Dr. Div's asking, the Sniper is the one that doesn't lope, right? That's right. Dr. Div's saying the 1516 springs, according to Texas Speed and Performance, is the same as the 1515 ML, 135 closed and 410 open. Those are the specs for the 1516s. That is correct. Sam is saying, I've seen people safely run 500 plus on the stock Asian Trans in my year, but I'm looking for that much power. I'm hoping to be 430-ish and 1,100 foot-pounds. Oh, okay, cool, man. Again, Sam, I don't know anything about diesels, so you're just sharing with the community, brother. I don't know nothing to say about that. I like diesels. I'd love to learn more about them. I just haven't ever done it. Dr. Div saying they shouldn't require shimming, though I'll always check my spring heights and pressures. I always have the head set up by Hooper's heads, or that's just my thoughts on it. I never like just throwing a set of springs at a set of heads without checking spring height and open pressures. The reason why is because it's tolerance stacking. Any manufacturing process, you have a specification of within a certain range, and if your heads are milled just a little shy and your spring rate when you install them, if you don't check, you can run into a situation where that spring can be a little bit tight. Or if it's the opposite, where it's machined a little shallow, you've got a spring that is going to perform like a spring that has a lower spring rate. That's the problem that you run into. So always recommend having the heads set up by somebody that knows how to check the open pressures and the closed pressures, and make sure that they are within operational ranges that you're looking for. And I don't like going any more than about 410, 420 on the spring pressure. At that point, you don't really need anything else. It's just you're not doing anybody any good, and you can actually start to it'd be overwearing the situation actually. overwearing your, hold on a second, I'm having a problem here with this thing. You're overstressing the valve train for no reason. And if you're running something like that, shell out the extra $300, get a set of Stanky tie bars and collars, get your 5mm shim, and just get that thing installed and be rocking and rolling. R-Drive saying, can you have it sound like factory? Thanks for the info. Yeah, actually you can. That cam with one of Alex's tunes, you may not even notice that it's got a cam in it, which makes it a lot of fun. Mad's checking in saying, hi, I'm from India. What's up from India, man? Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, dude. Cool. Dr. Dip is saying, Hooper's heads are the best. Yeah, Sean is awesome. Let's see. Dr. Dip is saying, he's set up for a couple of people I know. Man, do they flow well. Yes, they do. He has got... he's got a CNC program for the Hemi stuff as well as LS3s that is sick, man. A set of his LS3 heads on an LS7 is the recipe for making a ton of power for the GM guys. X is checking in and saying, I'm going to need a transmission soon in my Silverado. I want to do a Cam 6.0 in the future. Should I get a built 4L60 or convert to 4L80? I plan to only make around 450 crank. If you're only going to make around 450 crank, a built 4L60 will be fine. If you plan on ever taking it anything past that, then the 4L80 is going to be where you need to go. If you're going to stay NA, go 4L60 built and you'll be in good shape. SRT8's asking, what can I do to improve the NAG1 in my 6.1 Charger without completely rebuilding it? Well, a trans tune for sure will get you where you need to be with that. You don't really have to do a lot in the tune. Obviously, adjusting shift points would be a big deal. I think that anything, I mean, again, not knowing the rest of your combination, you know, if you're staying NA, the NAG1 will hold everything just fine. There's a lot of folks making a lot of power in front of those NAG1s, by the way. E55 would have a lot to say about how well that transmission can perform. Sam saying, SRT, there's a company out of Louisiana that makes valve bodies for the NAG1. Yes, there is. Southern Hot Rod does. You can definitely go that route, trans tune, or a combination thereof. Oh, hang on a second. X is saying, thank you, I hate wiring. Yeah. No kidding. Wiring sucks, man. Actually, I don't mind wiring so much. Wiring ends up being kind of cathartic for me. I have, on a couple of different cars, I've had to rewire completely. And at first, it's kind of intimidating until you get past the idea that you're just completing a circuit. You know, that's all you got to do, from point A to point B. You know, there's times where it just gets, it's tedious. It's not hard, it's just tedious. And, you know, if you've got some time to kill, or if that's what you're being paid to do, it's pretty laid back. You can just kind of get into a zone, get some music going, and just work through it. But yeah, wiring in general just sucks. Especially when it's bad wiring, you got to go in there and try to fix something. That's when it totally sucks. So anyway, just part of the job that you're doing. But, well, cool, man. Well, I tell you what, we're coming up on about an hour and a half. I am going to get this thing out of the garage, get the Camaro in the garage, and get to working on it. So, hope everybody is having themselves an awesome week, or at least is looking forward to an awesome week. I'm looking forward to a week at least where it doesn't rain as much. And that's going to be a wrap on this one. So I want to say thank y'all to everybody for hanging out. Thank y'all for participating. Catch y'all on the next one, and that is a wrap. Adios.